Hi, I'm Joyce E Okello from Inner Tuition Life, and it is a Saturday afternoon, and it's been beautiful. I went earlier on today to the beach and grabbed myself some free food from nature, and I have a free recipe that I've made available on YouTube. I got inspired by my day to just express. Really, there's no particular topic that is coming forth. I just wanted to express how I felt, or how I feel today, how I felt earlier on, and how I'm feeling right now at this moment. Just getting up in the morning and enjoying the walk to the beach, connecting with people, with just the environment, and just like my sister now waving goodbye. It's great. You feel a sense of satisfaction that you're not so much that you're alive, that you just open up to the experience, whatever it throws your way, or whatever you intend to do. But it's funny that whatever you intend to do is mixed up and influenced by so many variables, so many strings, so many verses, and it mixes up to form a synergetic music effect to your rhythm. Whether the influence is positive and whether it is negative, if you view it as negative, if you open up at that moment, it will be counteracted immediately. That's how powerful the universe is. There is always something to counteract the negative. Also, if you have the positive, and I believe sometimes if you're so obsessed with it, then there will be something to counteract that, in order to bring you really to what it is, in being. That is being. So, yeah. I really don't know what else to say. I'm very tired. I've been working very hard to create my products and services in my business. And my business, Inner Tuition Life, is fairly new, but in terms of where it is that I thought it would be at this stage, I don't feel that I've got to the point. I am at the point where I wanted to be in terms of various benchmarks. But at the same time, the realistic view is I've been caught up in a huge life experience that has shaken me, literally, to a point whereby I can't even believe I am sitting here and I've worked on my business and brought it to this level where it is I've been able to express despite a strong hurricane blowing in. But I'm standing still. I'll open up now to what comes forth in my mind. And it is the situation that I have experienced in the last 2 years has, as I said, shaken me up. And it's proved, for me, it's opened me up to a different outlook in life, where it is previously I used to read many inspiring books by people who had gone through a traumatic life experience, some fictional, some non-fiction. but also I used to marry with people in terms of my social connections. And the people who inspired me were the kind of people who appeared to me like they accepted life the way it was. Now that's pretty hard because of the influences. You have to stay still in yourself, really, and accept. I had that understanding even as a child from my cultural background. I'm originally from Uganda, and I grew up for my early few years without my parents. And my parents were really my sisters or aunties and uncles, extended family, who came in and out of my influencing my life experience. But my understanding then that I took in life, also with the situation back then during the Idi Amin time in Uganda, what I took from that experience was anything can happen, and not to take life for granted, and to just grab that moment and go with it and enjoy it. I grew up in a climate whereby people just lived. If you want to cry, you cry. If you want to laugh, you laugh with all your teeth out. It's okay. You express. You express life. That's living. I grew up in such a culture, and later on moved on to Papua New Guinea, Port Moresby, whereby I experienced a shock to my system initially, because I felt that the Papua New Guineans generally, obviously, of a similar color, and I was shocked that even if, I mean, you do study, but when I left Uganda, I was young, very young. So in terms of my understanding of cultural influence, it wasn't really engraved into a concept whereby you can, as an adult, understand your place despite differences in culture. What I noted straight away when I landed in Port Moresby Airport was people of a similar colour, but straight away noticed a different culture, which was both good and bad. Good that I was learning a new culture, bad that sometimes I couldn't fit in, or there were groups. And there's always, and I did release a video recently where I talked about integration, and especially focused on integrating into the Australian culture, and how I worked hard to integrate. And I think it's a responsibility of someone who is going to a new place to open up, to see how you can connect. So yeah, that was similar in Port Moresby, but learnt so many new things. The language, couldn't believe that there was racism towards black. I didn't really notice it that much when I was in Uganda, but in Port Moresby I was seen as darker, so black. So I noticed that, and this is general, but really it was newcomers into a land, and I don't excuse the behaviour of those who viewed the differences and emphasized it as a negative rather than a positive. I'm saying this is part of life, but what it is, your choice. And it goes with what I said at the beginning. In a moment or in an experience, there can be a negative. If you're open enough, it will be counteracted straight away. So my experience in Port Moresby was great. Went to school, did part of my schooling there, and went to an international school. So Port Moresby was, back then when we settled there was a huge influx of people from different cultures, and especially at the school where I went to, both schools, the primary school and high school. I did complete my high school there, but it was, I loved the experience. It was a breath of fresh air, different cultures mixing together, and therefore, because there was that cultural mix, there's acceptance of that, the uniqueness of what it is they bring, generally. So with that experience, when I moved on to live in Australia, I brought that whole experience from Uganda, Port Moresby, here, and I've travelled pretty much all over the world as well. And it is, I am concentrating on the type of human being, a type of human being. I'm not putting myself on a higher level. I'm sharing an experience with you whereby I appreciate my outlook in life, despite circumstance. Reflect back to Uganda now. As I said briefly, I grew up in I was born around the Idi Amin time, or when he was a president in Uganda. And I am not political, so I won't go into the specifics of politics, but I will look at the human being under it all, or within it, and my part in it, my experience. I remember laughter, as I said, the sharing, you know, because my parents weren't in Uganda, we were quite poor. We didn't have that much in terms of money to buy the stuff that our friends had, even food, basic food. But we did have a little money. And how I look at our survival, we survived because of the strength in the human being, but the connection, the openness, the sharing. We shared. If we didn't have salt, we'd go next door. Hey! And our fences weren't high fences. We would talk sometimes. I remember seeing my auntie. She was very active. She's very energetic. She would talk to the neighbours next door. Hey! So-and-so, whatever. Hey, can I have this? Oh, and also, oh, well, yes, we've got this in the garden. Let's share. I see that a bit in communal gardens here, where people share food. But that's how it was. I use the term, at that time, there were critical times hard to deal with, but at the same time, there were joyful times good to deal with. So, but looking at the state of my family or my siblings, we were struggling. There was the good that the human being, and that's why I give it to the human spirit too. You pull yourself together and you succumb. And you say, in succumbing to that moment, I will. I've decided. I've made this choice. I saw that in children, even babies. It's almost like babies also know coming into a difficult household or being born into a difficult household. They do their part too. Animals. We're talking about a situation whereby you're hearing gunshots. All sorts of hand grenades are being thrown here and there. You're hearing blasts, bombs. And you're in your home and it's shattering. You're feeling the quake of the whole. You're thinking the walls are going to cave in. You're feeling the vibration of the floor. It's shaking. And this is not all throughout that period, but I'm focusing on certain incidents or certain moments that come to life right now with what it is I'm trying to express to you. So, yes, that's all going on. Babies may cry. A mom they're busy. A dad also has his part. Sisters, cousins, in those times, it's not, oh, it's our house. This is our house, so the neighbors go away. If there is trouble like we had around our house, our neighbor said, come, jump over the fence. Come to my home. We jumped. We went to home. We held on to each other. Some held on to each other in a traumatic time. You're almost insane at that moment, but also very clear. So the individual or the human being acts as they do. Some huddled together. Some were on the floor, feeling the cold floor. It was cold. Some hanging on to a door, whatever it is. Some crying, but crying silently, so that the soldiers couldn't hear, but you could hear breathing at that minute. You could hear the breath. There was not much food. So whatever, if there's, I love this experience. There's a time when we didn't have food in our house. And there's my uncle. He went to the city, or the town, as we call it. At that time, there was a lot of chaos in the city where I lived. Chaos to the point where shop owners didn't really have ownership of their goods or products and services that they really goods in terms of products that they sold. There was looting. There was chaos to the point whereby let's just take. People were running here and there. Some just in a scope. Some may have been shot in another street. In another street, people are breaking the doors down. They want food. They're starving. They're stealing for their families. my uncle went into the town and he looked everywhere and actually was threatened when he this is the story he related to us when he went. He wanted to steal a sack of, I think it was potatoes, sweet potatoes. We call them amokeke. Amokeke are sweet potatoes cut up in slices and dried in the sun. And it's beautiful what you can make out of that. I think it was sweet potatoes or sugar, but I think let's focus on sweet potatoes because that comes to mind. I remember him saying that. So he was going to get the sack and someone threatened him. So to kill him for that. That's the desperation at that time. There was no food. People's garden, people would steal from other people's garden. So I think you get my point. So he put down the sack and he thought, okay, what can I take home? He brought home a fish head. We were about quite a few of us anyway. I won't count. And in terms of recollection, I was young too, but the incidents I remember that I can relate to. So I remember my auntie getting a pot. It was a massive pot. Putting one fish head in that pot to make a stew. All we had was salt, rock salt. Salt, really that was the ingredient to put on, in the fish stock. It was watery, tasteless, but it was something. So we ate. We drank, we had millet or a staple bread. We had millet with that and we were fine. As the climate got more intense, we had to run away. We run away from the cities because that's where the fighting was taking place more obviously. So we all, and also there was the understanding at around that time, which is bringing me again to the point of a human being and the choice that a human being makes in a desperate situation. Some families decided, let's go back to the country. Or in Uganda, let's go back to our village. Let's go back to our people. Let's die with our people. Because it was obvious that at the time that you could die. There was a higher possibility that you can die because of what was going on. The state of war is insane. The decisions made are insane. At that time, we decided as a group, influenced in my family unit by my sister, who just thought, let's just go to the village. So we walked. Before we walked, we didn't have handbags. At that time, as a child, I remember we didn't have handbags. And if we did, not enough to carry our luggage. So, I'll show you what we did. We got, I'll use a towel. This is a tea towel. We got materials, or cloths, and we packed up our belongings in these materials, and this is how we made a bag. We made a bag like this and carried on our heads, or just carried the bags with our hands. In terms of our shoes, we were poor, so we didn't have, say, good shoes to help support the feet and the whole body for a long walk, which was about 40 miles away from the town. We didn't take public transport because that was using the main roads. That's where you would run into soldiers. So we walked. We also decided not to wear clothing that was too revealing. So in bright colored clothing. And we decided to pack up the little food we had. Cassava, mainly, I remember from memory, it was cassava, which is, those who don't know cassava, it's a root vegetable. It's a root vegetable, like a potato, but it's more of a soury taste. But it tastes nice on its own, but it also tastes nice with added ingredients like salt or whatever you want to add to it. We boiled cassava, packed it up, and woke up very early in the morning, one morning, to begin an epoch, a journey, a long journey. Along that journey came positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. It was cold. We couldn't afford much in terms of good protective clothing, so we were cold. There was a baby, my aunt had a baby, which is why I said baby is also understood in a way the situation. But at the same time, it was a difficult situation to have a baby there. I was pretty much a baby myself. And we walked. I walked knowing, and I did my part, even if I was pretty much a baby too, I did my part knowing that if I lagged behind, I'd become the disability to the group, or the disabled part of the group. So in order to function as a unit, I also exercised my will as a toddler, basically, as a very young child. I walked. We kept walking, and I remember the adults around me said, "Oh, let's carry you." But Come on. As a kid, I remember this. The adults were carrying heavy bags. And now to also carry me, I said, no, I'll walk. So we walked. It was hazardous. Through railway tracks, weaving in and out, talking to, and this is the connection to people and environment. Your senses are heightened because this is life or death. You become a machine, a force. So we connected to people coming or on our way, and some people said, oh, where you going? There's more trouble there. Go back, go back. Or some people encourage, oh, yes, go home. So there is, if you had to say, there's so much information, and you have to sit in within yourself and make a decision to just go with it. And go with not it as in everyone, what they're saying, but go with what it is we've decided as a group. And each person had input into that decision. Whether it's a child crying, okay, let's consider the child. So we formed a union to survive. We became an identity together in that time. We kept walking. Okay, it looks like the terrain, it looks like, no, review the terrain. Okay, we've connected to the people. Okay, what's the environment saying? It looks like there's been a tank, an army tank. I've got to say this. This is an example. It looks like there's been an army going through this. So we've seen trails of the tank, an army vehicle. Okay, let's not go there. Or just even a motor vehicle, because it was mostly the soldiers who were moving about. If it's arid that way, okay, maybe there's no use of going that way. It may be a difficult path. Or what I'm saying is all this is being processed, and at that minute you're not really conscious of it, but it's all being processed in the mind. And the human being's ability to process it in a split of a second in order to make decisions hastily and to power through courageously. Now at that minute you may be trembling, but you're not thinking, oh I'm scared. You're trembling, but you're going. You just go. So we kept moving, and there was an incident. I think I talked about this in a Facebook blog that I released to the public in 2017, just to highlight a similar experience of a traumatic time I was going through, and not having the resources like a car at the time, and the bus, the transport system in the area that I lived with wasn't reliable, so I had to walk for very far, for 2 hours basically to get home. But, and I went through a few things, but that was that. So at this time, so we're walking. So we have to cross a main road. We come to a point where we have to cross a main road to move to the direction of our village. So we're walking along the road, and that's when all hell broke loose. I won't be too descriptive because I might get emotional, but just I made a point. I am an author, I'm a writer as well, but I made a point also to share this with you in terms of a video expression whereby I could connect to you in this sense. So the soldiers, I'll get to the point. There were tracks full of soldiers standing up, but there were army tracks that at the same time we were crossing or were walking along the main road. They came out of nowhere and began shooting. Just that's why I emphasize insanity. I believe that there are reasons why a country may have an armed force or security for protection, but it needs to be disciplined. The soldiers just shot everywhere as if there was almost a they were getting a what's the word here? They were getting a thrill of it, thrill from shooting. They were high. It looked like there was no mental connection to the human being. It's just shoot everywhere like that. And other humans, us included, ran, just dispersed. Also, it was almost like we were not insane as in you don't know what you're doing, but insane as in I cannot believe this is happening right now. So you see that visually. So we ran everywhere and scattered everywhere. Some, because the also mental function is not the norm, or the mind is not working as a mind would normally function. So the mind is at a threatened situation or position. So therefore, the mind just looks at, let's survive. If we have to go under a like there were some trees that were cut down. If you have to go under that tree, go under the tree. If you even literally think, do I go under the earth itself to just take cover, we used to say, take cover, and would lie down like this, take cover, to survive. At that minute, people are just running everywhere, bumping into. Look, there's no way to really describe it, but it was chaotic. Even the wild, like the birds, just because the gun firing, it's not only deafening in terms of sound, there's sparks. So it's not the norm also for the wild or our environment. So animals are also running. At that particular moment, I won't describe it too much in terms of what we did uh, to get to our destination, I describe the human spirit, the strength. So, my uncle and the love. My uncle grabbed, once the gunshots, the soldiers started firing our direction, my uncle grabbed, forget about the luggage, just throw it. It's like, what? Forget that. My uncle grabbed my sister and I under his arms and he protected us, saying basically, shoot me and let the children live. For me, that's what I remember about the human spirit. Despite what takes place, a human is equipped in themselves to survive, or to, even if it's not just, and when I say survive, we're surviving every day anyway. There's so many influences. It's a different chaos, if you want to look at it that way. And it is that, if you want to look at it that way. Even at a time like what it is I described, if you want to get blown off by the understanding that it's chaotic, it's chaos, then it will be that, always. But even at that minute, I come back to what I was saying, the human spirit, we're equipped to survive. At that time, yes, everything, all hell has broken loose. But I'm here. My family's here. And I'll continue. And as the Ugandans said, if it's my day, it's my day. It's the acceptance. I look at the Western world. There's chaos if you want to look at it that way as well. There's fighting within. There's fighting in terms of competition. There's fighting to understand various concepts. There's a war. Like when I relay my story, because mine came out in both the physical, in terms of the outward expression or experience, let's say, and also the internal in terms of what decisions do we make, but also within are emotions. That come through, even if you're not focusing on the fear at that moment, it is taking place. The emotions are also taking place. But what it is I can relate to at that moment, or remember about the human being, and also my understanding and experience and education now about the human body and the function. Your emotions freeze, because at that minute it's survival at its heightened state. So therefore in order to understand and release it, the experience, that process isn't taking place at that stage from my experience. It is later on when the body, because I mean, you're talking, that's what I mean by fight. That there is a lot going on there that if you had to focus on that, then it's the external, it would be hard to focus on survival in the external arena. So the human spirit, I was saying, yes, we have the tools already. But it is not only the human who, from my experience, who managed to survive at that minute or at that when I relay my experience. There was a synergy of influences, vibrations, unconscious and unconscious. Did I say conscious? I'm throwing myself there. Conscious and unconscious. That came together. Whether it's me and my various levels in my body. Spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. Whether it's my family, whether it is a group of people in Uganda as a network being influenced by a situation, that input also comes to play. Whether it's divinity coming through, it all, our environment, animals, the earth itself, all coming together. But for me to survive and stay here, I have made a decision at that minute. And when I say survive and stay here, in terms of accepting to have that connection still to myself at that minute, it's me who made that decision. There's influences, there's a higher consciousness. That for me to accept that, I have to open up to me as a human being. That's how I see, and I am inspired by other human beings, and not only human beings. Our environment, our animals, sea, vegetation. Sometimes there's arid weather, but still a plant springs forth from the ground and holds on to life. Influenced by various variables. But there's also the decision for the plant itself to stay here. My survival in Uganda influenced my survival in Papua New Guinea, integrating, understanding that no matter what forces come through and influence me positively or negatively, I am here. That has also come through in my experience in Australia, whereby when I look at the experience in Uganda, I thought that was such a traumatic experience to have gone through. I thought that was the worst ever. But no, at this time when it is I review my situation right now, I have gone through more than a storm. And have lost what normally people consider a reflection of your efforts in a community. I've lost that without a valid reason. But it is the human spirit I am describing here, or expressing, that not only did my experience, did I take other influences from my experience, but I also created within myself certain I would say behaviors, but a certain view that I will not be afraid to speak up, to express what it is that my right is as a human being. The freedom to express, the connection. And despite my expressions, whether in script, news, music, speech, I will say that I am enough. That's what it is I've understood about myself. It's not only the understanding that I'm enough, but also the understanding that I am a force. If it is that my being in itself is being stunted, like wind can blow so hard on a plant, and the plant will bend, almost breaking, but the plant decides, I'll hold on. That's what I have understood about myself. And that is something I've understood about a human being just in my experience, and been inspired by other human beings, animals, other beings in our universe. I'll leave it there. Thank you for watching and sharing in my expression. I'm Joyce Okello from Inner Tuition Life. This is life. C'est la vie. is always home.